International Human Resource Management, IHRM, staffing in different countries from different countries. International human resource management involves the sourcing of jobs with overseas or out-of-country employees. The process is very complicated as language differences, cultural differences, and laws have a large impact on work assignment, success or failure. Expatriation is sending an employee to another country to fill an assignment, and repatriation is the return of the expatriate to his or her home country. Both the outbound and the return of expatriates represents potential problems for the employee and her family. Categories of international human sourcing include expatriates, third country nationals, resident aliens, host country nationals. Third country nationals are paid by a U.S. company to work in a country other than their home country. Resident aliens pass the green card test or the substantial presence test. Host country nationals are residents of the country they are working in, but are paid by the U.S. International human resource management involves staffing employees to work in different countries and paid by companies based in different countries. Regents of the University of California v. Bakke, 1978. First reverse discrimination case. Regents of the University of California v. Bakke, 1978, was a case argued before the Supreme Court which calls into question affirmative action quotas. In this case, a white medical school candidate named Bakke sued the University of California system and specifically the Davis School of Medicine when less qualified minority candidates were admitted. The school was using a quota by reserving 16 of 100 places for minority students each year. Bakke claimed he was being discriminated against because of his race and won. This is the first landmark reverse discrimination case. The case has called into question affirmative action quotas, but not necessarily made them illegal, as not all schools removed their voluntary affirmative action enrollment quotas. Regents of the University of California v. Bakke, 1978, called into question quotas based on affirmative action and race. Balanced Scorecard, BSc. Analyze and direct actions to achieve org vision/strategy. Within organizations there is often activity, but is the activity purposeful in achieving the vision of the organization? The Balanced Scorecard, BSc, was developed to ask and attempt to answer this question. The BSc was developed in the early 1990s by Dr. Robert S. Kaplan and Dr. David Norton. The method works to review actions from the perspective of the vision, purpose, and strategy of the organization. The method focuses on financial measures and business processes like traditional methods, and then adds the human element into the analysis, including the perspectives of customers and employees. Additional metrics, for example, may include the hours of training received by employees or the number of suggestions made by employees. The method both analyzes and suggests a roadmap for future actions. The Balanced Scorecard is a strategic management tool for analyzing and guiding an organization in achieving its vision and strategy through actions. Power Distance Index, PDI. The powerless's expectation of societal power difference. The Power Distance Index, PDI, was developed by Gert Hofstede in the 1960s when he established IBM's European Personnel Research Division. The index rates the expectation of people with low power as to how much of a difference in power there should be between the powerful and the powerless. The PDI has been applied most often to countries, but is very appropriate for organizations too. A high power rating occurs in countries like Malaysia, Middle Eastern countries, and South American countries, where scores of 80 or higher exist. A high PDI means that those in authority are rarely questioned and have more of a right to impose upon those with less power. Those with less power expect it. There does exist a correlation between high PDIs and violence between those in authority and those not in authority. In countries with low scores like Austria and Israel, individuals with little power expect there to be very little difference in power between the powerless and the powerful, providing for a more egalitarian environment. Within companies, a good example is if a mailroom employee has every expectation and right to question the CEO, we would expect a very low PDI. The Power Distance Index is the expectation of those with low power as to the acceptable level of difference in power between the powerful and the powerless. Synonyms: Power Distance Rating. Human Resource Inventory, HRI. Inventory of current employees' skills and abilities. A Human Resource Inventory, HRI, is an inventory of the current employees' skills and abilities within the organization. The reasons for keeping such an inventory is so that new projects can be staffed appropriately, as much as possible, from human resources which are already inside the organization. For an HRI to be accurate, employees need to update the HR department as to improvements in education and skills. Likewise, the HR department must remain proactive in this effort. The HRI is the foundation of any predictions or estimates of future staffing needs given modification based on current trends. A Human Resource Inventory, HRI, is an inventory of the current employees' skills and abilities within the organization. Related words: human capital. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. No race, color, religion, sex, or national origin discrimination. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 makes it illegal to discriminate based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin, parentheses, RCR, SNO, and parentheses. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act requires employers to be generic in many senses of the word toward employees. Title VII applies to employers with 15 or more employees. Title VII created the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC, to implement the law. Title VII has been expanded and the powers of the EEOC increased to include enforcing laws that prohibit discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or age in hiring, promoting, firing, setting wages, testing, training, apprenticeship, and all other terms and conditions of employment. Race, color, sex, creed, and age are now protected classes. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibits discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. SMART goal: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. Many professions use SMART goals. SMART stands for goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic/relevant, and time-based. Specific might be the difference between a goal to, quote, get healthy, end quote, and a goal to eat an apple each day. An apple a day may or may not equal becoming more healthy, except for the person who eats almost no fruits or vegetables. For that person, the specific goal is much more useful. Specific often leads to measurable. We can count if an apple was eaten each day. It is quantifiable as opposed to whether the person was, quote, healthy, end quote, that day. Achievable means the goal can actually be accomplished. A school district with a 65% high school graduation rate that sets the goal of 100% graduation has a very low probability of achieving such a goal. R is sometimes said to be realistic and other times relevant. I like relevant better because there are times when goals don't seem to make much sense in the larger context of the organization. Goals must be prioritized to take advantage of limited energy, and relevant gets at that idea. Time-bound is when the goal is to be achieved. SMART is a simple acronym to keep goals specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. United Steelworkers of America v. Weber, 1979. Companies can implement affirmative action programs. United Steelworkers of America v. Weber, 1979, was a case which reached the Supreme Court on appeal, with the finding being made that companies had the right to implement an affirmative action program for a training program which reserved half of its spaces for African Americans until a time when the percent of skilled African American trade workers matched the percent of the surrounding community. Parentheses, change from a current 2% to match 39% of the community, end parentheses. More specifically, the court found that such a program did not violate Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Brian Weber had sued the United Steelworkers of America because it supported a Kaiser Aluminum and Chemical Corp policy of allowing African American and white workers into the training program on a one-to-one basis, even though there were many more whites. Completing the training program resulted in higher pay, and Brian Weber had more seniority than many African Americans who were admitted to the training program. The Supreme Court reversed the decision of lower courts and ruled against Brian Weber. The ruling established that companies had the right to reverse the effects of discrimination through affirmative action programs. Human resources and strategic planning. Human resources, integral part of executive team. Jim Collins popularized the expression, quote, "first who," end quote, in designing a business for maximum profit and productivity. He further explained that people are not an organization's most valuable asset. Quote, "the right people are," end quote. Having the right people on the bus and in the right seat is the key to good business. As a result, human resources, and more specifically, the head of human resources, is an essential player in the executive team of any company, and might even be the number 2 position in any business that wants to maximize long-term profit. Strategic planning is the overall design and direction of a business. Jack Welch considered his HR head the number 2 person in the organization after himself, parentheses, he was the CEO, end parentheses. Simply put, human resources is the number 1 competitive advantage, parentheses, or competitive advantage potential, end parentheses, of any organization. Human resources is the number 2 player in strategic planning for long-term profitability and growth and growing organization, parentheses, and some would argue the number 1 strategic pillar of any and all organizations, end parentheses. Related words, values. Mergers and acquisitions. Growth through joining or buying another business. Mergers and acquisitions refer to a growth strategy common in today's business climate. Mergers are usually voluntary and mutually agreed upon. Acquisitions are usually hostile and resisted. An acquisition is performed through purchasing the stock of the target company. Another acquisition strategy is to buy the assets of the target company. Mergers are typically done by a swap of stock. Different values can be handled by exchanging different quantities of stock. Mergers and acquisitions is a simple concept, but a tricky proposition in execution. HR is, again, the most probable lead function in a merger or an acquisition, and cultural matching is essential to the success of the relationship. Mergers and acquisitions is a strategy to grow a business through merging or purchasing another company.